Welcome to our next video in the Algebra 2 series, where we're going to look at absolute value equations and inequalities. To start out, let's think about absolute values. What are they? An absolute value is the distance from a number to the center. So if I'm at positive 3, I count left 3 places, and it's 3 places away from 0. If I'm at negative 3, I count right 3 places, it's 3 distance from 0. That means that each absolute value can get to 0 in two different ways, a positive and a negative. Connecting that to absolute value equations are going to result in two answers because there are two possible directions to count from. However, there are some absolute value equations that give us what are known as extraneous solutions. Extraneous solutions are answers that will not work for whatever our original equation was. To figure out if it does work, we would take our numbers and plug them back into that first equation and see if they work or if they don't work. These are only going to happen if we have a variable outside of the absolute value. When solving absolute value equations, there are a series of steps that are helpful to follow. First, we would isolate our absolute value using inverse operations to get rid of any numbers that are being multiplied to it, divided from it, added to it, or subtracted from it. Once we have isolated our absolute value, then we're going to split our absolute value equation into two equations. Whatever is inside of our absolute value is going to stay the same. Whatever is outside, we're going to take the original and we're going to take the opposite of that original. So if I have positive 5 set equal to it, I also have negative 5 set equal to it. If I have 2x set equal to it, I also have negative 2x set equal to it. Once we split our absolute value into two equations, we're going to solve both equations, and when necessary, we'll go back and check for extraneous solutions. Absolute values can also be used with inequalities. Inequalities that include absolute values are the same as the compound inequalities that we've already reviewed. To solve and graph these inequalities, we use the same steps that we did when solving absolute value equations. With one thing, we want to remember that when we include our negative, we will also change the inequality sign. Now, inequalities that include absolute values and are less than are going to give us and inequalities. Inequalities that begin with greater than and have absolute values will give us or inequalities. In our next video, we're going to practice solving and graphing several absolute value equations and inequalities.